You're watching Into Wine TV, and today we're talking about wine pricing. And Bartholomew, I'd like to know what indicators, if any, in terms of pricing, can tell consumers whether something is good or bad?
It can't, basically. You know, one of the best things that has happened to the wine business in a long time is the collapse of the financial market. And one of the worst things that's happened to the wine business recently is the rise of China drinking wine. It's had a counterbalancing effect. Basically, to me, wine is a drink, okay? It's just a drink. It's a drink and part of your meal. It's a healthy thing. And for years and years, you know, until about 15 years ago, everyone was in the wine business trying to demystify wine. And everyone was really shocked when Caymus went above $60 for the first time. Any California wine had gone that high. And I was really frustrated during the dot-com era, where I'd go up to these friends who were, you know, in dot-com business or in venture capital or whatever, and they wouldn't buy a good Portuguese wine if it was not over $70. And the collapse of the financial market had the effect of, I know one investment banker who lives in Virginia, he works in New York, but he has gone from regularly drinking $200 bottles of wine to drinking $20 bottles. And what he's discovered is that you can get a $20 bottle of wine, which is in every way as good as a $200 bottle, if you know what you're doing.
So you're saying that at any price, there can be good wines and bad wines?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the Chinese market, unfortunately, has gone crazy on Bordeaux's. The Bordeaux market is now, you know, to buy. I mean, Bordeaux has always been expensive and really a domain of the wealthy, but it's really ridiculous, the pricing of Bordeaux, and it's really the Chinese who have driven that price up, because the American market has really turned away from Bordeaux. I mean, they're still buying a little bit, but compared to what they used to buy, the US market has collapsed for Bordeaux, and I think that's a shame that the Chinese market has just allowed them to continue raising prices instead of adjusting prices down to what the market's dictating. So what is important from a buying perspective are price points. You know, $2 chuck a few years ago was a big thing, and today I think the crucial price points are $7, $6.99, $8.99, $9.99, $12.99. Then you get to the $14.99. Above $20, you're eliminating a lot of drinkers. When people evolve in their wine consumption, university students, you know, they'll start drinking just to get drunk at first when they're 21 years old, and they'll drink really cheap wine, and then they'll realize that you can get much better wines. And you know, as they age, they'll go up to about $25 a bottle, and then it stops. And there are very, very few people who actually go beyond that level. It's a very small part of the wine business that's beyond that. But
so that's in terms of the more or less mass market wines, the huge producers. I think those are really valid figures.
No, I don't think it's mass market wines. You know,
well, it's not the fine wine market. You know,
absolutely
the market where there are great Burgundy, which will sell easily at 300 or so because there's so small.
But I'm talking about great, let's say, great Portuguese wine that is $25, as good as any great Bordeaux. You know, but people haven't discovered those.
But as a consumer, how do I know when looking at my choices for wine that, okay, you know, something in this price range for maybe this type of varietal or this vintage is going to probably be a pretty good value?
Well, that's always the tough thing. You don't really know unless you have a different opinion. The thing I always promote when I write is price commensurate with quality. Well, the drawback with that, of course, which sounds good, is you have to try it first to see if you think it's worth your money. I had Fred Franzia, who made $2 chuck, on my radio show, and I asked him point blank. I said, Fred, in your opinion, with the amount of wines that are in California specifically and the pricing, what's the most anybody should ever spend for a bottle of wine? He said, without hesitation, $10. Well, now I disagree with that. There are some wines that are terrific wines that are priced above that. But I think consumers are starting to have a backlash of the expense of Bordeaux and the expense of Napa Cabs, which we're just getting at a point of becoming just plain greedy. But my frustration when I write about wines is How do you convey that to people when someone goes into a store to say, I've got 10 bucks, what's my best deal? That's tough because across the board you've got so many variables.
So the important thing is that people go to stores where they get knowledgeable help.
Yeah.
I mean, a specialty wine store is really where people need to go, and they need to ask some questions and find out whether the person who is advising them, the person who's helping them, knows enough. Can take some ideas from them, what kinds of wines they like or what labels they've liked in the past, and can suggest other things to them and develop a relationship with that person. The worst thing is to go to the supermarket. The supermarket is where you get the really, the plonk wines, and they buy shelf space. And
well, I have to say, there's high-end wines.
Actually, that is absolutely not true.
It depends on where you live, I guess.
No, I'm sorry, but what you just said is absolutely not true in America. There's such a thing as an inducement law. Wine is the only product that doesn't buy shelf space in a supermarket.
Wait, what do you explain that?
There are very, very strict laws. Wine is more controlled. Wine and spirits and beer are more controlled than drugs and guns and what have you. The restrictions on how we promote wines are humongous, and it is completely against the law to pay for your supermarket's shelf space way. Kellogg's pays for the shelf space.
Right.
And beer companies.
And I wasn't saying that they do it the same way as those, but there are limited numbers of wholesalers who control the market in some places, and will only give, they buy it in another way in terms of working with retailers and only giving them, certain kinds of wines that they know sell well if they otherwise are putting wines that they want on the shelf.
I think you're delving into matters there which are hearsay.
There's a lot of hearsay.
If those wineries are caught paying for shelf space, they will lose their license.
Right. I'm not saying the wineries. I'm saying the wholesalers.
And the wholesalers likewise. They may do it very. There are some big wholesalers who are renowned for going and putting, redecorating the buyer's house. But if they're ever caught, they would lose their business and be thrown in jail.
But regardless of that, and getting back to your point, I was going to tag on to what you were saying about talk to a local wine shop. My thing is, don't be embarrassed about the money you have. If all you've got is 20 bucks to spend on a bottle of wine, don't be embarrassed to say, all I can afford is 15 bucks. But I also have to say, in defense of grocery stores, certainly in my region of California, there are a lot of well-versed people working at grocery stores. Now, that's more an exception than the rule,
yes.
But the more you talk to people and say, and can define, I've got 15 bucks, I like this style, I'm having this with dinner, the more those people who are pretty well trained to give you a good bottle of wine can find that at that price point. And I find that a lot of people they're embarrassed to say, I only have $10. They're embarrassed to say they don't really know what they like or don't like. And my thing is, it's hard to tell if a wine is going to be good at $8. I've had $300, $400 bottles of wine. They're terrible. I've also had $10 that are amazing.
There's also pricing manipulation at the other end. There was the whole cult cab phenomenon, and wines that got incredibly high scores from Robert Parker, and then turned around and started, offering single bottles for $300, $500, $1,000 a bottle, and that caused a phenomenon among some people trying to get into the high-end wine business, that we got to out the gate, we've got to charge a lot of money, or people won't think that this is
it sounds exclusive,
an important wine, right? Mm-hmm. So they start with a brand new vintage, charging $150 or $200, and I have a real problem with that, because it in no way costs that much to make that.
So
pretty much, there's no wine in the world that would cost more than $30 to make.
When does it make sense for a consumer to pay more than $30, $50 a bottle?
I think one quick answer to that is if a wine has been aged, and that costs money to age a wine. So if you're buying old wine at auction, yeah, certainly pay more. If you find a unique wine that really hits your fancy and you just love, and like for me, Chateau Musard, I don't like spending more than $20, $30 on a bottle of wine, but I'll spend $50 on a bottle of Chateau Musard because it's just a wine I absolutely love, and I can't do without.
I would have thought you could get it at wholesale.
Well,
since you guys carry Musard, which I love.
Okay, let's face it, I've never paid for a bottle of Chateau Musard in a shop because I can get it.
But I totally agree with you about that figure. I've looked at a number of different, very honest winemakers' reports on, even if you get the most expensive possible grapes from the most expensive land in California here, top spots in Napa pay top dollar for it, get the best corks, the best heaviest bottles, really go crazy in embossing the label or whatever it is to make it stand out. 30, 40 bucks is all that wine really is going to cost you. So the huge premiums make sense in a few limited circumstances. There is very little land in Burgundy. There are very sought after vineyards. There are lots of wine buyers in now Asia, China, Hong Kong, that are going after those kinds of very rare items as commodities, as collectibles. And there are well-heeled wine buyers who want to have that vintage, that special vintage of Romani Conti or Yquem year after year. And so there is supply and demand there. There's a very limited amount. So the prices that those are charging make some sense given the market.
Well, there is supply and demand, but in the United States, I think it's completely gone askew. You've got prices that are not commensurate with quality. Number one. Number two, you've got pricing that is just completely made up. We were talking earlier about going to Portugal and having Vinho Verde, and it's €2, and you get an amazing bottle of wine, which translates to $5, $6. And I think in our country we've really kind of gone with this idea that if it's below $5.99 or whatever price point that is, it can't be good. And granted, a $5.99 wine is not going to be as good probably as a $21.99.
Let me just correct one thing that you said. And Pinot Grigio is pretty much the same deal as Vinho Verde, that you can buy pretty much any Pinot Grigio, an importer can buy any Pinot Grigio or Vinho Verde for about €1.30, which let's call it $2. $2 does not translate to $5. $2 translates to $9.99 full price. So the three-tier system in America dictates that a $2 wine that I import that costs me $2 is going to end up $9.99 on the shelf.
No, and I know that. And when I was in Vinho Verde, I'm buying wines there. In Portugal, same wine here, it's $18.
But just going back to Pinot Grigio and how can you tell if you're getting good wine? Let's say the biggest brand of Pinot Grigio, I won't mention the name, but the biggest selling brand of Pinot Grigio in America is probably $25 or something.
Just under. Yeah.
It's costing them probably $2 at the wine, and it is purely marketing and the fact that they can charge it because there are lots of people who think they're buying good wine.
So I think whether you have enough money in your pocket to buy a bottle of $2 Chuck or a $300 cab, it sounds like at just about any price point you can find something good. Just find someone knowledgeable who can help guide you through that process. Thanks so much for watching, and if you have any tips you'd like to share, please post on our website your comments and thoughts on this episode. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for watching.